In this lesson, we're going to learn about pairs of angles, like special pairs of angles. For instance, adjacent angles, linear pairs, and vertical angles. Adjacent angles are angles that are next to each other and they share a common side and a common vertex. They're like neighbors next to. So think of it that way to help you remember what adjacent means. Next to. And by the way, whatever I write on my paper here is what you should have on your notes. Okay, so angle pairs, another set of angle pairs is linear pairs. Notice that these two angles, they're adjacent, they share a common side and a common vertex, and they form a straight angle, which is 180 degrees. Okay, these two together add up to 180 degrees. I should put plus 180. Now, vertical angles share a common vertex, but not a common side. They are formed by the same pair of lines. Now, one way that Miss Hartley explains it is that they look like a bow tie. If you close this in, it looks like a bow tie. Vertical angles are always equal. They're always congruent. Okay? So this is something you need to make a note of right here. Always congruent. Okay, now, if you go down to numbers 1, 2, and 3, I know it says tell whether angle 7 and angle 8 in each figure are only adjacent, are adjacent and form a linear pair, or are not adjacent. Those are the directions. So number 1, we have they are next to each other, they have a common side and a common vertex. So they are adjacent. They also have opposite sides that form a straight angle. Okay, so with this problem right here, you notice that these two angles are together. They share a common side, a common vertex, so they are adjacent. Their opposite sides also form a straight angle, so they are a linear pair. Notice the root of the word linear is line, so that should help you remember it. Okay, number 2, we have angles 7 and 8. They share a common side and a common vertex. They are adjacent. However, they are not a linear pair because their opposite sides do not form a straight angle. Okay, number 3, 7 and 8, they do not share a common side and a common vertex. They share a common vertex, but they are not vertical angles either. So these, 7 and 8 for number 3, all you're going to write is not adjacent. Okay, numbers 4, 5, and 6. Tell whether the indicated angles are only adjacent, are adjacent and form a linear pair, or not adjacent. Basically the same thing, except now it's all on one figure. Okay, so angles 4 and 5, they are adjacent. You could say only adjacent, but that's kind of implied. Their opposite sides do not form a straight angle, so it's just adjacent. 1 and 4, let's see, 1 and 4, 1 and 4 are not next to each other. They don't share a common side. They're not vertical angles. They're not linear pairs. So for this one, you're just going to put not adjacent. Number 6, angle 2 and 3. 2 and 3, oh cool, guess what? They're adjacent and they form a linear pair. Well, if it's a linear pair, then it's adjacent. So you're going to go ahead and write adjacent and linear pair. Okay, name each of the following. A pair of vertical angles. A pair of vertical angles in here, you have angle 2 and angle 5, and they are congruent, so I went ahead and marked them that way. So that would be angle 2 and angle 5. Another pair of vertical angles would be 1 and 6. I'm going to mark them congruent as well, but I'm going to use 2 arcs so I can distinguish between these two being congruent and these two being congruent. So I can say angle 1 and angle 6. Okay, a linear pair. Linear pair in this one, I would use angle 3 and 4. Angle 3 and angle 4. And then number 9, an angle adjacent to angle 4. Well, an angle adjacent to angle 4 is angle 3. It's next to it. Common side and common vertex. Okay, next page. Now we have some terms you may be somewhat familiar with. Complementary angles, it's 2 angles that sum to 90 degrees. Supplementary angles, 2 angles that sum to 180 degrees. Notice the examples up here. You've got 2 angles that are adjacent. The little box means they add up to 90 degrees. Well, you can also have a situation where they're not connected. So these 2 angles are not connected, but they are still complementary. Same idea over here with supplementary, except supplementary, the angles add up to 180 degrees. This pair is also known as a linear pair, just like we talked about on the other side. Okay. Now we're up to number 10. Tell whether each pair of labeled angles is complementary, supplementary, or neither. Complementary, 2 angles that sum to 90. Supplementary, 2 angles that sum to 180 degrees. Or they're neither. So if you look at these two, well, 45 plus 45 equals 90. So that means these 2 angles are complementary. Number 11, this angle's 110, that one's 110. Well, let's see. They add up to 110 plus 110 equals 220. So that means they are neither. Neither or neither, whichever way you want to say it is cool. Okay. Number 12, find the measure of each of the following angles. Complement of angle S. Well, if angle S is 56, complementary angles sum to 90, so the complement of angle S is going to be 90 minus whatever S is. So in this case, it's 56. So we subtract 90 minus 56, you get 34 degrees. The supplement of angle S, supplementary angles add up to 180, so we can do 180 minus whatever the measure of angle S is, 56, which equals 124. Now keep in mind, to find the supplement or complement, you're taking whatever angle you have and subtracting from either 90 for complementary or 180 for supplementary. Okay, so for this one, number 14, I want to know the complement of angle R. So complements, we do 90 minus whatever angle R is, so that's 22. So that equals 68 degrees. The supplement of angle R, that's going to be 180 minus 22, which equals 158. Okay, now the next problem is a little bit more complicated. Angle LMN and angle UVW are complementary. That means they sum to 90 degrees. They add up to 90 degrees. Find the measure of each angle if measure of angle LMN is 3x plus 5, measure of angle UVW is 2x. So you're going to write an equation. So we have 3x plus 5 for angle LMN plus 2x for angle UVW. They add up to 90 because they are complementary. And then you solve for x. So let's see, 3x plus 2x, that's 5x plus 5 equals 90. Subtract 5, you get 5x equals 85, so x equals 17. I want to find the measure of each one of these angles. So measure of angle LMN equals 3 times x, which is 17, plus 5, which equals 56. And then measure of angle UVW is 2 times x is still 17, and that equals 34. Obviously these two should add up to 90 degrees, and they do. Now another way you could find the second angle is you could say, okay, well I know they add up to 90 degrees, I know the first one is 56, so you could do 90 minus 56, which equals 34 degrees. So that's another way you could do the problem. Okay, have a good evening. I'll see you all tomorrow.